My name is Dempsey Mork, and I'm talking now about reverse mergers. And that's a transaction where we merge a private company into a public company, and the private company becomes public overnight. It's a transaction that's well suited for a company that's profitable, would have, let's say, net earnings of, say, $1 million and up, unless the company was a foreign company, a European, Asian company. Those companies are always candidates for reverse mergers just because IPOs are nearly impossible for them to be able to accomplish. The primary benefit of a reverse merger is that, let's say as compared to an IPO, would be its speed, because a reverse merger can be accomplished in 2 or 3 days. That means in 2 or 3 days we can be selling stock to the public. The time to prepare for a reverse merger, get through the audits and the legal work, could be 2 or 3 months, but then the actual transaction, 2 or 3 days, and we're there. In the case of an IPO, it's going to take at least a year and cost $1 million or more. The other reason for a reverse merger, even if you don't compare it to an IPO, is the ease of attracting investment. The primary reason that investors don't invest in private companies is there's no exit strategy. So the investor can see a lot of great private companies, he can see good yield, he can see nice profit, he can see safety in his investment, but if he wants his money out, there is no way out. There's literally no exit plan or no exit strategy other than dividends, and they know better. They know they're never going to see a dividend. And the result of that is there is no investment. So most private companies never do get serious investment outside of friends and family. But that same company, if it's public, can be very appealing, because, especially if it's a young company, because to an investor, he's buying it as a publicly traded stock. So he can buy it on Monday, change his mind on Tuesday, and he's got his cash. Because it's so easy to exit, it's not a super hard decision to make to invest in the first place. So it's because the investor can get out so easy, he's very willing to come in. And then the investor, when he's looking at the company, especially a young company that's got its whole future in front of it, is much more likely, let's say, to double its profits and therefore its stock price in a year than a well-established company. So you take a company like Microsoft, fabulous company, great company, but in its best year ever, it's never grown by 15%, other than its first formative years. There's a lot of investors that might be ready to invest $50,000, $100,000, but they don't want to put in $100,000 and hope to get $115,000 at the end of the year. They'll put in $100,000 and they hope to get maybe $150,000 at the end of the year, $170,000, $200,000. And they might get nothing. They might not make any profit, but at least they want a chance to make some good money, and much more than they'd get in bonds or savings. So that's one of the reasons why that NASDAQ market is such a popular market, why there's so much interest in it, because it's got a lot of young companies, and those companies have potential to make investors a lot of money. So a young private company does a reverse merger, makes itself available. The fact that it's relatively small and doesn't have a lot of earnings does not work to its disadvantage. It doesn't preclude anything. If anything, it actually attracts more interest, because there's just a lot of investors that are not interested in hearing about a stock that's going to increase in value 10 or 12%. But one that might increase 50% or 75%, they're ready to listen to. The first thing to look at is what's the value of that company as is, and what the value of that company would be if it was public. In other words, if the only thing we changed was its status. So private companies sell at 5 to 6 times earnings, and that's a world average. So whether you're in Russia or London or New York or Canada, Mexico, 4 or 5 times earnings is what you could expect if there's a buyer. If you can get a buyer. Might be hard, but that's the ratio. Now that same company, public, would be worth 15 to 20 times earnings. So huge jump by changing the status. Let's say a company that, say, has sales of, say, 8 million a year, let's say it makes $1 million, just so that my math is easy. So at 5 times earnings, that company is worth $5 million. that $1 million earnings as a public company is worth 15 million. So now we're going to jump from 5 million to 15 million in value. It might cost the company, if you count, let's say it's professional fees, investment banking fees, dilution, because it's going to give up some of its shares when it merges into a shell, maybe it cost $1 million. So of that $15 million in value, the shareholders of that private company, now public, are holding 14 million worth of stock versus 100% of the private company worth 5 million. So that's the most compelling reason right there, is creating value. So we do a transaction and we create value. And that's the reason why almost every company's dream goal is to be public, just to achieve that status.